died. So I had nobody, there was no rains.
Yeah.
You good? All right.
Pretty good kid.
Okay, everybody, welcome to our second budget
I might let the
education
shades down over there.
session. Councilman, you're on.
There's a glare that comes.
Excuse us.
Will you do that one too?
Councilman Henderson is directing the
blinds.
shades, but
That's
we'll
Well, I
start
did
in
that
just
last
a
week
minute.
and I like, chief like jumped out of
Well,
his skin.
you're on, Councilman. The whole city is listening to you do that. And, but this is nice. This is nice. Okay, today we're gonna cover other funds, the capital improvement plan, and additional topics, which I understand are from you. The library, the zoo, the ball fields, the AHO, agencies, the Eastgate Senior Center, and cost-saving incentives. And so I think we'll start with you, Vicki, and other funds.
All right. Other funds are listed on this slide. This is the only slide we're gonna talk from, but they're listed in dollar value, which is not the order in your book. So I can tell you the page and we can flip through if that works for you.
I'll tell you what, why don't you just go down this, and then if any of my colleagues wanna do a deeper dive, we can go to the page.
Okay, that works.
Okay.
Wastewater, Mark Heinzer and Justin Steinman are here if you have some questions. Where the revenues are less than the expenditures, that means we have a planned use of reserves. So for wastewater, we have $26.8 million that we plan to use for reserves for their capital. The revenues are primarily from user fees and must fully support the system. There's a planned 6% rate increase for the year.
These, when you say reserves, are you talking about wastewater reserves?
Wastewater reserves.
It's not general
No,
reserves? Okay, thank
wastewater
you.
reserves, sure. No
Any
question?
questions?
Okay. The next-
Wait, we do have one, yes.
Madam Chair, thank you. How much do we normally keep in that reserve fund? We got an idea with RPA, but
What is it, 100-some million now, but we'd like to keep 6 months operating expenses.
6 months, so,
We're over that right now, but we won't go less than that.
okay.
Yeah, if you combine our reserves and then investments, it's close to 200 million right now. I mean, from an actual cash standpoint, we're gonna, over the next 3 years, be drawing that down really significantly because we've built it up so over time to keep our rate increases fairly steady.
And that's part of that plan, because I remember hearing that we're
Yeah, so they'll get.
capping those rates.
Right, and so the reserves will get drawn down substantially because we are building that up over time so that when we do over the next 3 years, when our capital expenditures are very significant from a spend standpoint.
Right.
We have that money there and we don't have to hit our ratepayers with large rate increases.
I hope we promote that heavily with ratepayers, because that's something I know we hear a lot about every year when that time comes. Wow, another 10% or whatever the number is. So I hope to see that really escalated on the PR side. Good, thank you, Madam Chair.
Sure, I think it's a very good question. Do you all have a plan for PR to let folks know exactly what you just said?
No, not exactly. So the rate increases happen in October.
Right.
So we've got a little more time to flesh something like that out, and we'll do that as we get closer.
Yeah, do, because people get concerned, and I think from the very beginning, we knew what we needed to do, but everybody wasn't in on those conversations, so, thank you. All right, Stormwater Fund.
All right. Oh, looking around. All right. Bill Payne's can be online if we have some questions for this one. Stormwater, the revenues are less than expenditures on this one. This has a $4.6 million use of reserves for capital. There are no rate increases planned for the year, and the same thing, their revenues must fully support the system.
Any questions?
Same question if I can, Madam Chair.
Yeah, is it a question or a comment that
It's
we
the
need to let
same
people
repeat
know?
question, let people know, and, I mean, this has been an area of quite a contentious conversational point with, I know, directed at council members, and I would like to see us think it's a good thing that we are able to do this, but we really need to promote this and let people know what, you know, what to expect.
Yeah, I think you're on target. So guys, let's make sure that we let people know what's going on with the money, and a good PR campaign that includes people and able to ask questions. Any concerns about the funds themselves? Economic Development Fund.
Okay. This one, the revenues and expenditures equal one another. This is where the local option sales tax is accumulated, and it's to be used, the first half for Hamilton County Schools, and the other is reserved for economic development. The first part of the funds must be used to cover the lease rental payments on behalf of the CDRC, and the remaining funds are dedicated to economic development projects.
And what is that? What are economic development projects? Just samples for the people that are watching as well.
We have some agencies that are funded through this. When we had the last week, when there were agencies, and there were maybe 4 at the bottom that said 1111, those are funded from here.
So when we get to the agencies, you can point those out.
Well, those are not included in that list. Let me find my tab here. Agency.
I imagine the Chambers one, I can't remember what they
I-
are.
All right, at the bottom of page 83,
Chamber is one.
Chamber of Commerce is one.
Enterprise Center is one.
PEF, Public Education Foundation,
Thrive Regional Partnership.
and Carter Street Corporation. Those are all funded after.
Okay, so what page are you on?
That's page 83.
If anyone has any questions about these funds, go to 83 and look at them. Do you have any questions about the Carter Street Corporation? Do you have any questions about any of those particular agencies? If not, we're gonna move on.
Well, I do have a question about the Chamber Equity Initiative. Will they be partnering with our Department of Equity in that initiative?
Do you have an answer to that?
I said yes. Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right, okay, yes. Any other questions, Councilwoman?
No.
Okay, any about any of those others that are there? Yes,
Chair,
Councilman
thank
Ledford.
Can we get a brief rundown on the hotel motel tax fund, on exactly what it funds? And probably starting with the 21st century
Yeah.
water.
I've got some details
But
for
we've
that
made
one.
some changes recently as well, and I think it would be a good time to
Okay.
get up to date on that.
Exactly what it funds. All right, I've got that.
Yeah, I do have one more about the lease
Yes, ma'am.
payments. Is this total like everything that we're leasing, the different buildings and things that we're leasing?
This is the DRC. We sold the Chattanoogan. It's all the things that started with the Southside Redevelopment Corporation. The remaining, we have bonds that won't be paid off until 2028. We had brought something to you about a debt service reserve fund recently, which paid off $3 million of the next due date and $3 million of the last due date, so that decreases what we owe on that. So we have lease payments on that through October of 2028.
Okay, that's what that's for.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else on that?
So are we talking about hotel motel right now?
No, this is still economic development.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Okay. Okay, let's go on to hotel motel.
Alrighty. Hotel motel, that is the occupancy tax on hotel and short-term vacation rentals. The question has come up if we can increase the levy on that, and that is not a possibility. We are at our max of 4%. This is used, first of all, to pay off the debt service for the 21st Century Waterfront Plan. And the other things, the remaining funds can be used for improvements, and here's the changes. not just the waterfront, but for any downtown and tourism improvement and quality of life. So this year, it includes $4.5 million to go toward the Walnut Street Bridge project capital. And we're paying $4 million, the last of our commitment to the Tivoli as part of that.
Okay. And I think parks, did parks get added into that? I thought there was an improvement to parks. My apologies, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
I thought we had parks in either an ordinance or a resolution not too long ago.
I think we adjusted the language to enable that,
Okay,
but we're not there yet.
but it's not a budgeted item yet, but
Correct.
we did make the change.
Correct.
So, okay,
So we've got an $8.5 million coming out this year
okay.
for the bridge and for the final for the Tivoli.
What was the Tivoli amount again?
$4 million this year.
Go ahead.
So if we've got 8.5 million coming out for those two projects, does that mean that we're down to about $500,000 in debt service?
That would be nice. No, the bonds are not paid until FY31.
But if we're using, is that our payment for the year? Or how,
I don't know what the debt service is. Let me look at that real quick.
because if the debt service is the first thing that we have to pay,
Left over.
Is what's left over, right? Debt service for the year is $4 million.
so the 4.5 and the 4 are over 2 years then? If we've got 4 million in debt service that we've got to pay with hotel motel tax out of
I
8.9 million.
I misspoke on the Tivoli. That is under 23.
Okay,
It's just the 4 million for capital for the waterfront.
okay, so
Yes,
last
thank
year
you.
was the Tivoli, right?
Last year was
Okay.
Tivoli, so we're fully committed on that.
Okay, so we'll continue to have about $4 million in debt service and approximately 4.5 million, depending on growth in the future for other projects in
That
future
should-
years. Okay, related to short-term vacation rentals, I neglected to mention this last week as we talked about, revenue briefly. I think I was not here yet. But one of the things that came up in our research was that we were not charging commercial rate property tax on absentee short-term vacation rentals. And that is something that the property assessor said, we just need to provide them the file that says these are commercial properties. And then it would be up to the property owner to let the assessor know if that was their only additional only additional property, which would allow them to be residential, or if it would need to be a commercial property. So that revenue, has it been projected as part of our city revenue?
Right now, our projection is pretty much based on the 23, which wasn't as strong, obviously, with what's going on. And without a plan, a clear view of what's going on, the revenue probably is projected low.
Okay, what would be the best way for you all to communicate with us that money has been asked for and received and budgeted? I would like some accountability to know, because it concerns me that we're saying, oh,
So,
right now, because we talked about it 4 or 5 months ago. I would have liked to have known that was already in our projections. So what can you all commit to us to provide us?
so this is the property taxes being charged at residential rates instead of commercial rates.
Correct.
Okay.
So we as a city have a list of every absentee, and every one of them should default to a commercial tax rate.
I'll have to find that list and communicate to the assessor's office.
And then get our projected revenue from that. And I think, to have a conservative numbers and a higher number based on if they were all ultimately commercial or if they were half commercial.
When do you think you can have that for us?
First of all, who has the list?
Chris Anderson has the
Chris,
list.
Chris has the list.
Chris, okay.
What list do I have?
You have the list
Fill him
of
in on one.
every short-term vacation rental absentee so that we can do our projection for commercial property tax revenue.
I have seen the list, but I don't keep the list. We have enforcement staff who does that. That's kept in the land development office.
But let us follow up,
Yeah.
on that.
Someone's going to provide the
Let us
list.
follow up, we'll get the
It's an
list,
action item.
and then we have to follow up with, it sounds like the county, to figure out how doable it is to get this tax revenue, so that we can figure out how capturable the revenue is, and then we can figure out how to adjust the revenue side. So,
I have spoken to the assessor of property. I believe Councilman Ledford has spoken to the assessor of
Okay.
property on separate occasions, and our understanding is it's very doable. It's a matter of including it in a spreadsheet and saying, this is a commercial property, bill it.
Great,
We'll follow up.
fantastic.
And given our current legislation, we're fortifying that.
We are, and so let's not leave that money on the table for another year.
I mean, it feels like we should be able to capture that, Vicky, before the budget is passed. I mean,
I don't know. I don't wanna commit to
Right,
that.
they've been asking for this for quite a
Yes,
while,
yes.
So
so,
here's the deal, we wanna report back so far on hotel motel taxes, exactly what it funds, and the projected revenue from absentee landlords or
Yeah.
the commercial revenue for that.
Yeah.
And you're talking about an age of computers, so I don't know why we wouldn't be able to get that pretty
Right.
quickly.
I agree.
And it's, of course it's collectible. Every commercial and every non-commercial tax is collectible, so
Yeah,
let's get that done. And we'll come back with the plan for that. Councilwoman Coonrod.
And I'd like to see if we could, extend the boundaries past just this downtown riverfront, because we have many hotels or short-term vacation rentals in our communities, and how some of that investment can come to the communities and not solely be used for the downtown, south side area.
So you're talking about the short-term vacation rental overlay?
Yes. Yeah, because the motel, it's
Well,
our
the-
hotel taxes.
But what we voted on last week would expand absentee short-term vacation rental citywide in commercial spaces, so that's exactly where this revenue would be coming from, would be from absentee
Right, but what I'm talking about is
homestay.
the money that they're capturing is only used to help develop downtown and South
In the
Jack.
hotel motel.
We're saying,
I follow.
can we get some of that to come into our communities?
That's an interesting
We'll
question.
add that to, exactly what it funds. I'm gonna add, outside downtown. Let's hear your thoughts about that. Good point, Councilwoman.
I think this comes back to, again, what are the allowable uses of this revenue, right?
Well, we'll
And
discuss
so-
it later.
Okay,
But I've just got it down as we come back and talk about it.
Okay.
All right, State Street Aid Fund.
Ben Taylor is here if we have questions on this one. This one includes $1 million planned use of reserves to go toward the pavement management program. This is a distribution of the state's gasoline tax, is what funds this. And it has to be used for major street construction and improvements.
Any questions? Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Vicky, does this plug into the 10 million we have allocated for paving? Or is that plugged into the 10 million number?
Yes, that's that $1 million, I think you mentioned is a portion of that.
Okay, thank you. Just want to make sure we.
Councilwoman.
So does that include sidewalks in that funds or not? For paving?
Sidewalks are
So,
Is it?
so State Street Aid funds do allow us to do sidewalk construction. This is mainly paying for our crews that do the work. And they do some sidewalk repairs, but it's not full-on sidewalk new build outs. They would contract those out separately as capital projects individually.
Okay, thank you.
We
Does it allow for sidewalks? And we're just not using it for that? Or?
So we're using it for, covering all of our crews that do, everything from pothole repair to sidewalk panel replacement. But a single sidewalk, capital project is in the multiple millions of dollars. So you would basically assign all of it to one project. So we ask for capital funds directly for each individual sidewalk project. So our new
So this is helping pay for crews.
I got it, I was
That's it.
just trying to.
Yeah, okay,
Good
just,
answer.
so that is just to pay the individuals for doing the work.
That's right.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So if you, in my district, if a whole sidewalk does not need to be replaced, if there is a certain area that need to be placed, funds would come from that to do that? And what would be the process in order for me to have that done?
A 311 request, or you're welcome to contact me directly if you have a certain
Okay.
spot, we can look at repairing it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You good?
I'm good.
Okay. Solid waste fund,
There are no changes in fees on this one, and the revenues are primarily from landfill tipping fees and the city's own disposal fees. And all the revenues must be used to support the disposal of solid waste and recyclables.
any questions? Municipal golf course fund,
Okay, Scott Martin is here. If
you wanna
have any
come to
questions.
the table?
I'm happy to, or I can sit here and Eddie is next door, our golf course manager, waiting specific questions.
Let's see if there are any, you know, a number of us are aware of all your plans from your report, but there may be some deep dive questions. So go ahead, Vicki, and we'll see if there are any questions.
Well, it's just that major revenue sources are green fees and golf cart rentals. And
Okay.
that the funds must be used to support the 2 golf courses.
Are there any questions? Yeah.
So, thank you, Madam Chair. Scott, we have the 2 golf courses. One, we've seen information over the past years where it's kind of lagged behind in keeping up. And then we have a relatively new contract at Moccasin Bend that from my own research and personal interviews, is actually, I think, going very well. Can you give us a light on that?
Yeah, I don't know if Eddie can hear us, I'll ask him to come in while I make some comments. I'll tell you this, our golf numbers are actually moving up,
Mhm.
and the post-pandemic, we've seen a resurgence in golf. We just had I believe, our best April in history.
Mhm.
So we're still seeing incredible public usage out there, and appreciation for the affordable the rates that we offer on the greens as well. Real balancing act to have affordable golf in
Yeah.
our urban core,
Sure.
and maintain it, and I'm leaning towards Eddie, but we're in a good position, and we feel comfortable about the revenue and the use rates that are going on. Tracking with Moccasin, I'm not seeing a huge difference between the two.
Okay, because we've seen expenditures or requests for lots of golf carts recently.
Yep.
And unfortunately, I remember all these purchases for some reason.
Yeah,
And
and Car Pass.
and cart paths,
Yep.
and those things, I just want to make sure we're not, off balance, but
Yeah.
from what I've been able to ascertain, it looks like we're moving in the right direction there. Okay, great. Good job, Eddie.
Automated traffic,
All right, this one is managed by our Department of Technology Services. Right, we have, when you look at this one, more revenue than we have expenditures, so there are planned, we're gonna put some money in reserves for some future use there. The revenues are from the automated traffic and speeding fines, and first of all, they're used to pay for our Nova Global contract, and then for related public safety projects. These could be speed calming, intersection upgrades, and specific public safety projects.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you. I'm on fire this morning, aren't I? Vicki, the Nova Global, that is the company out of Orlando.
I do not know where they're from.
Can anybody verify that for me? The reason I ask is because the city of Ringgold is actually utilizing, are we talking about our traffic cameras? Are actually using a company based here in Chattanooga. I think they had the word blue in their name or something I read an article about. And I'm just wondering if this Orlando, nothing against Florida, they're doing their thing, but we have, I think, a company right here in Chattanooga. If we're going to do this, not saying I'm a big fan of this, but if we're going to do this, we have a company. Are we bidding that out?
Let me see, on
I would like some
follow-up, see
follow-up.
where they're from
Thank you.
and how long we have on the contract.
Okay.
I'll say is one of 4 places in the state where traffic cameras are allowed on S-curves, they are saving lives in District 2 on a daily basis.
And as a former Stewart Heights resident, I can attest that they do
You've
make
had
a difference.
Tremendous loss of life on the S-curves, and these really help.
So I'll put down traffic cameras, contract, we'll report back on that. Anything else?
Are we able to get a list of where the cameras are? Like, I agree in District Two, it may be helpful there, but in my community, I kind of find these things that are placed in lower income areas. And, I'm just not a fan of it, but in areas they need to be, I think that's more helpful.
Got that on the list.
One of the things that I heard at one of our council meetings was the plan is to put them all over, extend them. Who knows that?
They're illegal too.
There are
There-
restrictions on where they can be.
Very,
Yeah.
very tight restrictions.
Yeah, I don't think.
Yeah.
Ben,
Like
Ben can speak
specifically
to this.
S-curves are
So, yeah,
mentioned.
as I mentioned, this is now managed under technical services
It's
department.
IT.
But, I can tell you that state law does not allow, photo enforcement, except for on the S-curves. And,
Oh,
Yeah.
personally, I would like to see them everywhere, because I think that we need that to calm traffic. But, unless there's a state law change, they won't be going anywhere.
Yeah, so there are old cameras sitting on roads, but they're not functional.
They're empty cabinets.
Yeah, just because the vendor chose not to take them down. We just talked about them in our safety meeting in District Two last week. That's why it's all fresh in my
They
mind.
caught
So
fire, I
you
think,
may
or
see
something.
cameras and think that they're taking pictures, but they're not, except on the S-curves, they're taking pictures and
when we
saving lives.
talk about automated traffic, that's just those cameras, but we've talked about automating so that we can,
Smart cities.
huh?
The traffic lights,
Yeah, the
Yeah.
traffic lights.
they're a little better on
And
market.
cameras at the, at intersections. Okay, what does that fall under?
That's under smart cities.
So it's under smart cities?
That's under general government. That's not under other
We-
funds.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so, all right, got it.
Yeah.
Oh.
One last question, have we thought about, urbanizing, I guess is how you would say, when I go visit other states or cities, like DC, you got the lights on the side, it's not all this, the wires across the road, and not just in DC, but it makes it look cleaner. You can see, of course, you respecting the pedestrian traffic. Are we able to do ours like that, or no? We not ready for that, we still wanna keep it kinda country.
That's
Yeah,
it.
could answer this, but this is over Tyson's,
Well, Tyson's not here, Ben, so go for it. You have design thoughts on
So,
this, I'm sure.
The city style is the more accepted urban style of over the head. You actually put a signal head over each lane. If it's over on the side, a large truck parked on the shoulder will block that side mounted sign. Some things you can't do in DC for numerous reasons, but yeah, our style is what is generally required by the manual for signalizing intersections.
What you're saying, Ben, is it's
Gotcha.
from a national standard perspective, it's seen as a safer
Yes.
approach. It might not be seen as aesthetically pleasing, visually pleasing, but yeah, so, yeah.
Okay,
One more point, Madam Chair.
oh, yes.
If I may. I know Ben said it, and I want to make sure, so if I have District 4 residents watching this stream, that I'm not advocating for these cameras, these speed cameras, because in my research on these and reading about these around the country, there is a constitutional issue that comes up with these, and I want to make sure that we are aware of that. One of that is the right to face your accuser.
On the
And,
people.
So, just saying.
All right.
I would add the people of District Four can remember that they're already illegal in the state of Tennessee. It's
Yeah.
been taken care of,
Yeah.
Yeah.
people of District
Yeah.
Four.
Unfortunately, Madam Vice Chair, they don't know that.
I'm
No,
sorry.
they're gonna come to me, so.
I'm sorry, that was impertinent of me, and I apologize.
Yeah,
Is there any other of my colleagues that would
that's
like
one of
to
those,
make a
for the
comment?
record,
Yeah, I apologize.
Okay.
that's
You
a
guys
little
get it.
self-preservation if
And
you
I
don't.
spoke out of turn.
Anything else
self-preservation
that
there.
you would like to comment on, Councilman Ledford?
No, ma'am, just
You're good?
trying to make a point.
For all of you in District Four, Councilman Ledford is representing you well. And
Amen.
he's made his comment. All right, TBRC fund.
All right, this is the Tennessee Valley Regional Communication System. The fees are assessed to both internal and external system users. This is an annual basis for system access and for maintenance of equipment. And it's an enterprise fund, so revenues must fully support the operations. There's no rate increase for '24.
Any questions? Narcotics.
Right. Simone is here from the police department if you have any questions on this one. This includes a $100,000 use of reserves. The revenues are primarily from confiscation. This includes forfeited cash and the proceeds from the sale of items that are seized. And these revenues do fluctuate from year to year. And the funds must be used for drug enforcement activity.
Wow, so nobody's selling drugs now. We reduced it to 80,000, which is good.
Any questions about that? Okay, let's move on.
All right,
Capital improvement plan.
Eric is up. You can sit here and you can.
We're at the tiny little section all the way in the back that has its own numbering, which we can go through as we start getting to it.
Are you putting it up on the screen as well, Eric?
I will put a few slides up on this
That's
up on
fine.
there as
Let's
well.
start
So,
with
but
that.
just as a reference, it's all the way in the back.
All right.
So this is just an overall picture of the capital budget for this year, showing the split between the general government funded projects and the enterprise funded projects. Enterprise for capital includes both wastewater and stormwater. You can see this is a pretty large portion of that. This is fairly typical, aside from last year in which the general government fund projects were significantly higher because of the unprecedented investments that we were making in FY23. This is pretty typical, although the enterprise funds do represent a pretty significant increase, as the wastewater folks mentioned earlier. That spend plan for their capital program is significant and shows significant expenditures over the next few years.
That's really driven by the WIFIA loan that came through. So that's that's really a exceptional situation that just is worth calling out.
Any questions or concerns?
Yeah, I got a question about.
Yes, ma'am.
Who decided to put this pump station on Brainerd Road? What part of Brainerd Road? Is it in my district on Brainerd Road, or? Oh, we ain't got to that way, stormwater.
Equalization.
To follow up
Okay,
on what that
storm,
exact
stormwater project, 3469 Brainerd Road. Is it gonna be under the ground, or y'all putting one of these big old
That
tanks?
was a stormwater project, and that one would be underground.
Okay.
It's simply there because in that particular location, there's a problem with the grade, of the pipe that goes underneath, Brainerd Road, which is a state route, and we're having a difficult time, being able to get that to flow like gravity, like it ordinarily would. So we're talking about an underground, small, very small, just a station essentially just to be able to lift that up and get it over to the gravity system on the opposite side of Brainerd Road. It's there in the area where, we've got a couple of projects. I think 3469 is there around where Christie's Sports Bar
Okay.
is, I believe. So it's near Tunnel Boulevard, and then we also have a similar situation at South Howell, Brainerd Road and South Howell. They're both very similar.
Okay.
Where we're just having issues with gravity system functioning the way it really should because of all the development.
Okay. And then, I actually have a couple of questions on this. So the CDBG sidewalks, again, and I had asked before about this statement about, the sidewalks, construction of them be designated in the low-income neighborhoods. And so, is this specifically in this budget geared to go into low-income neighborhoods, and what exactly does that mean? Because I'm excited that in District 6 they're getting a sidewalk, but that's not a low-income census tract, the area where it's going. So, even if we can sidebar it, I just wanna understand it better, like what exactly are you clarifying, categorizing as low-income?
I can speak for the CDBG funds are coming from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, so we do have to abide by their income rules in terms of how they're identifying that. So these funds are restricted to low-income areas. We can follow up with exactly how they're defining that. In terms of specific projects, if there has been one identified, I'd defer to Ben on what that would be for these funds.
We use the census tract, we've identified the current set of funds, Tunnel Boulevard, which does fall under the federal guidelines to allow it for use of these low-income funds.
Yeah, it'll be on the other side of District 5. Well, okay, thank you. And did we have a list? I know at one point in 2017, we talked about the different community centers that need to be remodeled and repaired. And it seemed like every year, every budget, Eastdale Center keeps getting further and further and further down the list. And Hickson was after Eastdale in 2017. So I would like to know or get an update as to when Eastdale and Glenwood both will be repaired and remodeled, or do we have plans on just closing those sites because they're a mess? They look like jails at this point, and we can't expect for our community members to want to frequent these areas, these community centers, if they're not even invited.
We'll take that away as an action item. We're currently doing facilities assessments on all the community centers to come up with an action plan that can, be more comprehensive, and it's going to take some time to figure out that sequence of events in terms of the prioritization for sure. So we can circle back on that.
Okay, and Washington Hills Community Center, did we get approval or acquire the land? Because at one time, we talked about, this was one, and it was the hurdle was we had to work with the school system, and they said no at one point. So if it's still no, why are we paying for a design?
Yeah, so we actually have that on the agenda for today, for council, for a lease with the county. It has to get approved here first, and then it goes to the Hamilton County Department of Education for approval. But we do have a tentative agreement there that they'll be, agreeable to what we have drafted there. So,
I believe, Madam Chair, you all moved the community center discussion to a strategic planning meeting. And I don't know when that date is, but these are good questions that need, it's
Absent last week.
yeah, it was, June something. Because a lot of us had those kind of questions, and so you need the respect of having them answered in detail. So whatever that date is, it'll be in a strategic planning meeting. You guys made that decision last week. All right, what else? Is there another question?
Yeah, I got the citywide camera refresh. Does this include and I know you just said that the centers kind of got put back to June, but I just want to add to the discussion if is this going to be inclusive of making sure the cameras around us, community centers, are working? Because I've personally, in my district, I've had too many people get shot, and all of a sudden the camera's not working, and the cameras are, a couple of them around the center, so that's real concerning. Just want to put that on the radar too.
Just include that, please, a report in the community centers meeting. Is that gonna be all about, I think you said it, for that one strategic planning would be all about, all the many questions that we had about community centers. Yeah, good, thank you. If y'all have any other questions specifically about community centers, send them to Ryan, and we'll make sure that they get answered. And you've got 3 weeks to get those answers.
I do have a question. It's in the stormwater projects. We've been saving for a while for the Dartmouth 5 Points Watershed project. When can we expect for work to begin on that?
I'll be glad to discuss it. I don't have that schedule either. As I recall, I think we were trying to build those funds over three separate years because we were trying to use available cash.
Okay.
As opposed to trying to bond that, so I think that's the reason why we didn't schedule those phases.
Okay.
But
So we may still be in the saving phase, but you'll provide me with it.
I'll confirm if this is our last year.
Okay.
Of savings.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments about capital improvements? Councilman Henderson?
The Raccoon Mountain Water Service, which is listed under neighborhoods on this, but it's listed under public works in our, just on further by. This is for scope and design, correct?
That's right.
But that includes water and sewer design. That's a question.
Yes, I think we had been anticipating it being water, but we'll look at both water and sewer.
So we got 250,000 in there, correct?
That's correct.
But, so if we bring water there, I just wanna make sure we're bringing sewer there at the same time.
Yeah.
This needs to be both addressed.
Yeah.
I thought we were also, it was my understanding that we're gonna start showing this in the 5-year budget as well. I mean, at some point, we need to fund this project.
That's right. We will need to. I think we need to, would like to have a better sense for what that total cost is gonna be before we start showing real numbers within the capital improvement plan.
So this scope and
based on-
design will give us a hard number
Yes, yeah.
for water and sewer.
Yeah, particularly working with our partners at Tennessee American Water, we want to make sure we're not getting ahead of them. in any of that. Since they'll be the ones that
There's
actually
probably not any
delivering the
chance we're
service.
getting ahead of it.
Right.
So let's just be clear about that. So, one other question, the smart city test bed expansion. What will that involve on Macaulay and Bailey?
Will involve similar cameras, sensors, and other signal cabinet controls to what is on the MLK corridor right now. It was developed between the Smart Cities folks and UTC.
Why do we call it a test bed?
I think it really is about making sure that we understand how we're utilizing the technology and how we can utilize the data that's coming out of it. And then part of the goal is to have.
So how are we using it?
A lot of it is UTC professors and students are using that data in kind of research and development ways, and then
Research, help me understand what's the goal?
Yeah.
If we're researching something, there's obviously a
yeah. Well, and I think it's
desired result.
I think it's a good opportunity for Mina Sartipi and Tyson to come do a joint presentation to council to give y'all kind of an update on that work. I think that's probably worth doing. But the idea is how could, a lot of it comes back to traffic timing, traffic light timing and that sort of thing. How can we optimize lights in such a way that can reduce congestion and pollution and that sort of thing? And so that, certain times a day you could, adjust lights to reduce traffic and that sort of thing. And so by extending and reduce accidents and that sort of thing. So it's really about safety and congestion and pollution. So, and using data from, traffic flow to do that. So
And what do the cameras do?
the cameras are how you're able to see the movement of the vehicles.
So Madam Chair, so you're wanting to do
That's just a suggestion.
special IT?
That's a suggestion. If the council's interested, we could do that for more information.
So Madam Chair said,
What's that?
I can answer that real quick if you don't mind.
Sure, Ben can add
oh, go
add some
ahead.
color to it as well.
The test
Maybe
bed is
not,
all
but-
about UTC creating opportunity for people to come in and test automated vehicles. So the cameras collect a lot of data. There's LiDAR, there's weather sensors. They're collecting things they want to send information to vehicles. There's nothing really we're able to practically put into practice right now with that sort of data. But what it does is it creates a situation where we could build out the future for automated vehicles to know when a pedestrian's going to cross the street, a cyclist is on the right or left. It's all about showing how city infrastructure can communicate with automated vehicles,
Yeah,
automated and autonomous.
that's the other piece. Is there is opportunity there around automation.
Well, that's a good answer, Ben, thank you. I think that was a question I asked, in fact.
So, do you need anything more?
No, that's,
All right, cancel that request.
Eventually, that would be.
Okay.
Well, I think eventually we do
Yeah.
want something, I mean,
You
I'd
do
like to,
want a presentation.
I mean, I'd like to kind of see it in action, but
I think the other piece is, I mean, frankly, within the smart, intelligent city team, we're very focused on practical application. While UTC is focused on some of the R&D, we are very focused on the practical application. And so I think it'd be interesting also for Tyson to present, hey, what are the practical pieces that we're taking away from it and applying day to day?
a test bed to me goes to
Right,
R&D.
R&D, exactly. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
All right.
I think
So
it's
could
worth
we call
it.
it R&D instead of test bed so that Councilman Henderson?
You can call
Yeah,
it.
test bed sounds a little jargony, doesn't it?
Sure.
Anything else about any of these topics before we get into the ones you wanted to discuss?
I think
Anything else? Yeah, Councilwoman.
more. So did we fund a digital infrastructure investment? The website looks great. So did we approve it before it got put in this budget to actually do, or we used previous years' funding that we said we didn't have to complete it?
The website,
Digital infrastructure
It
investment.
hasn't been rebuilt yet.
the website is, that was funded from the prior budget. The website was funded
So this
from the
is
prior
gonna
budget.
do what? What is it?
That is, that's continued, that's just continued, investment there. So, yeah.
And the only thing is the purchase of city vehicles. That, can we get a list of like all the departments that have vehicles and who are assigned to use them? Cause I see a couple of them that, to me, you shouldn't even be having a vehicle driving around the city for your job title. I can understand the mayor and, that kind of thing, but anybody that's working at the community centers, you need to be at the centers, not riding around in a car. And that may could save us some money too.
So the request is for,
The list of city vehicles
list of
and
city
who they
vehicles.
are assigned to.
okay?
Councilwoman, I apologize, I'm losing my voice, but I did want to mention, that is something that Ken and I have been talking about recently as far as vehicles, where they're assigned and how they're used.
Who's
So
talking?
That's
we
Julia,
start
she's behind.
Pulling
Oh.
stuff, sorry, I know, I don't sound like myself, so that we can start pulling those vehicles that are being used inappropriately, if they're already back into the fleet for appropriate use to save money on fuel and any other possible lease costs and anything of that nature, so that is something we're actively looking at right now.
Thanks.
So you still want the list of who's got it?
Yeah, I see. what
Okay.
you're saying.
All right, so here's what I have now.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I'd like to have a list of those as well.
Well,
share
That
with
would be
everybody.
shared with
Everybody.
everybody. Okay, thank you.
okay. So we've gone over the major topics. I think we're done. So you're off the hook right now. So what I understand you want to talk about now, let me make sure these are still on the list. You want to talk about the library, the zoo, ball fields, AHO, cost-saving incentives, agencies, and the reports on how and what they've done. This is for today. And also, we need to talk about today, and these I think are fairly brief, just a minute, very brief conversations. We in council have money left over. You saw those funds, of the money left from our budget, and to be used by us. And we need to encumber them, decide if we want to use them for anything, because we have to get the requisitions in, or let it go. There's also other monies in our personal accounts that may add to that. So that's a conversation, Madam Chair, that we may want to have at the very end, because we have to encumber them. This month, Vicki?
Very soon.
Yeah,
It-
all right.
It depends on whether it's a bid or, depending on what type of purchase, there are deadlines. I'll make sure that you've got
And
those.
one of the questions I had, Vicki, is, let's say I've got $4,000 in my fund, I don't know what it is. I can spend it all the way till the end of June, right?
You can spend it,
And I'm
yes.
putting the requisition or the reimbursement maybe in August. See, how does that?
August is pushing it. Books are supposed to be closed by the end of August, so that's definitely pushing.
Well,
So you can spend it through June.
and then
If you have, you can spend it, make sure that you get your expenditure.
in July.
July would be
Okay.
best. Please do not push
All
till
right, so
August.
for those of you that asked, that's the answer. You can spend it all the way to the end of June, but get the reimbursement form in right away.
Yes.
Did you have something?
I did, Madam Chair, just on the encumbering funds out of the council. Is there, have we done any further investigation into our upgrades, working with our security team, for example, on identifying any potential needs that we may need to fill gaps in? And if we haven't, something that kind of started when I was in the chair position, but I want to make sure we're
Security.
still following through. If there's anything we need to address from our security team, maybe we take a look at that and have them get back with us. And
Security.
you know, we started some things, but
Yeah.
I also see some things not completed yet.
And one of the things.
And we've had some great ideas, my apologies, we've had some great ideas. I think Madam Vice Chair even gave us a really good idea on one of those security steps. And I want to make sure that if we need to put an action plan, and if that's something I need to follow up with permission from the chair, I'm happy to do
Well,
that
I
as
think
well.
at this point, I'm making a list of this, and then at our next meeting, council meeting, if you want me to chair that part, I can, but either way, at the next meeting, we need to talk about that, security upgrades, and everything else.
I think it would be appropriate for our council office to begin considering how we invest toward the climate action plan. So, for example, perhaps having our staff take a look at what are ways that we can reduce our usage of single-use plastic, for example. So would we choose to get a water bottle filler and reusable water bottles for council that look nice on the dais or whatever? Things like that, is there a way that we can improve our recycling, that kind of thing? There may be some small expenditures that would help us not have to
That's
order as
good.
much Dasani, for
Yeah, that's the
example.
kind of thing I'm looking for. So I've got down the ecological considerations of our office usage relative to climate action. Anything else? Understand that anything we don't use goes back to the general fund. And that's cool. I'm not saying it shouldn't, but this is the time every year, and we need to make the decisions now so that we can fill out the quote purchase orders so that we can go ahead and.
I'll share the deadlines with you today.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have those.
Okay,
And Vicky, do you have the amount?
I do.
The amount that we have?
Yeah, in
Okay.
fact, you have it, Madam Chair, you asked for it. It's,
So will you share the deadlines? Could you share the amount with the entire council?
The
Whatever amount that we would have to encumber.
we have it.
We have it already.
Yeah, you asked for it, and I sent it to everybody. It's like $100,000 or something.
We'll add pepper spray to the list.
Yeah,
Say
here it
personal
is.
space. So,
We have,
I feel like I said a good one.
excuse me, balance remaining, and this is this sheet that you got, is $79,190, and that's exclusive of whatever we have left, if any, in our $6,000 fund. So it's gonna be about $100,000, okay?
Now, are those funds just solely to be used for things that we need within council, or if we wanna pay for, we've been talking about having somebody to be our research person at one time, or, are we able to give to an
Okay, so we're
organization.
able to have the discussion because, all right, so this is this year's money, right? When we start doing our budget for next year, which we've already done, it'll have the same amounts in it, right? And so it'll have about $100,000 in it that we were gonna use for, UTC, that we did use part of it. So I've left the money in and council, so the money's there. The discussion you're talking about is next year, what do you wanna use that money for? Okay, so that'll happen like, I don't know, in August, Madam Chair. What this money is money that's left over that we need to spend or it goes back to the general fund unless, can we encumber for next year, salary-wise, I'm saying that kind of loosely. Like if we want to encumber it to use with UTC or a consultant for next year, or does that come out of next year's budget?
We are being intentional of what we carry from this year to next year.
And what falls under that category?
It would be very long-term projects. We're trying, things that are operational, we're trying to keep in each fiscal year instead of letting people keep piling it into the next and inflating their budget.
Are they long-term or are they one-time large purchases?
We are gonna make sure that things like capital projects can continue through. Commitments for some of the agencies that haven't been billed yet, we're gonna let those carry through. But things for more operational, we are going to do our very best to get departments to get their invoices and receive them all this fiscal year and not move the purchase orders forward.
Okay, so what you're saying is we either use it or lose it.
Yes, ma'am.
And if we're talking about what Councilwoman Coonrod is talking about, that's discussion for our money, the money's budgeted, I've got it budgeted, it's $100,000 next year. We haven't decided what to use it for. Okay, any other questions or concerns? Okay, I have for additional discussion, not today, hotel motel tax is exactly what it funds, and can it fund, projects outside of downtown? We have the, traffic camera contract, list of city vehicles, and who they're assigned to, and is there anything else? Yes, ma'am.
One thing, if we can take a look at that 21st century temp agency contract, because it's taken temporary workers a whole year to transition to be full-time, and that shouldn't be the goal. When Brent presented this to us a while ago, when we claimed we was having a hard time hiring people to work in public works, specifically for garbage, so that was the reason to get them and for summer help, so our teams and all that kind of stuff. I think now we're at a space where we should be able to get people to apply to work in garbage. We gave them a pay increase, $45,000, $50,000. That would be attractive for anybody to get their CDLs and drive pickup. Just drive the truck to dump the garbage in it. But it should. My concern is that it shouldn't take a year, and we're paying them millions, and we just laid people off for one, and some of them are coming back. And we're saying we don't have money for different programs that's needed in our rec centers. We're also saying we don't have money to, create green spaces in lower income neighborhoods. So those billions can go directly to that. So I'd like for us to review that.
I've written down the 21st century temporary workers, and what I have in mind here, if it's okay with council, is that next week, we don't need to start at 10:30. We can start, what time, Madam Chair, would be good for you? I know we could start at 1:30.
I think one would be fine.
One, and get responses to all those things that I have written down, and I again, will send forward the list.
Council
Okay.
members, also the revenue, the projected commercial property tax
Oh,
revenue
gosh, yes.
I have that one.
from absentee short-term.
You know, I've
vacation.
got that down and I
Thank you
didn't
very
mention
much.
it.
Yes, we got that.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so that's your assignment for next week, starting at 1:00, and I'll mail this, but let's get on to the other things you were concerned about. Number one, the library. What is the concern? What is your response?
Yeah, so, first I'd just like to say thank you to Councilwoman Knoll and, Councilman Smith for the follow-up conversations, around the library funding, and their concerns there. I just wanna mention, to council that we are at the finalist stage for the next executive director for the library. Also, thank you to Councilman Ledford for his participation on that selection, during that selection process. And I think, as we go forward, we will be partnering very closely with that next executive director and the library board, as we continue to look at matching the right level of resources to the right level of services at the library on a go-forward basis, moving forward at the library. So I think very, very productive conversations over the past week, and feel good going forward.
Councilwoman, I know you had interest. Do you have anything else? Are you okay?
I did. I met and had a conversation, so what I'm gonna do is, sit on the sideline for just a short while and, allow some things to come full circle, which, prayerfully they will. If not, then I'm gonna come off that sideline.
Okay. So we need no further discussion today.
As of now,
You're good.
I'm good for right now.
Okay.
And pray it will happen before Jesus comes.
Okay.
Councilwoman Burns?
Yes.
I got a question about the rid of statement. I don't, I know the new person is gonna come in. The programming for me is great at the library. I would like to see how we can expand the services of our library into our community centers. And for all of them, not just, I know I'm getting the books delivered there, kinda like that Amazon model. But how can we get all the programming that's at the downtown location or at Avondale to be at every one of our recreational sites? Cause I utilize the downtown library, and every now and then I go to the one at Eastgate, and I see that it's real helpful in the services that they have, because a lot of lower income kids, they go to the library downtown, specifically from the west side community. They don't even go to the community center that's right at their back door. Now I can't speak to what you pay or what the library, I should have been a librarian because she make a lot of money, almost there where our mayor is at. But then you teaching our kids and giving them access. The library is the gateway to where any kid can imagine to be whatever they want to be. So I think, the service is needed. I hear Councilwoman Noel, what she's saying. I don't totally agree with it, but I don't want us to take an important piece away from our community members because we're getting caught up on salaries or whatever the case may be. But we need to be thinking about how we can actually extend the services, or, bring back the book, it's other things that I would like to see done around it, but I don't want us to minimize the great work that our library is doing.
So would you add that to the community center discussion, please? Good points. Councilwoman Knoll.
Okay, so let me be perfectly clear here. Never once have I implied that we take anything from the library. My concern with the library has always been the budget and the amount of money that is there, and that is top-heavy in salaries, and that the actual branches have a lot less to operate on than the people are getting in salaries. Now, the library is very important. But can we do better on how those salaries are being presented or how they are being, the amount of money that they're being given for what they have to do? And the way I look at it, there are some things that can be combined. And definitely a position can be eliminated or spread out between a couple other individuals. It's just, it does not justify, from what I've seen, that the individuals do would justify the funds that they are being paid. That money can definitely be used somewhere else, in a neighborhood center if that's the case, but somewhere else. Scripture tells us to be good stewards of our finances, and that is by no means being good stewards of that finance. So let's keep it perfectly clear. Never once said take anything from the library from anyone. I want to make sure that what is being given there, that the individuals that are using that library is getting the best possible benefit from those funds that are available.
So the takeaway I got from this is that you're gonna wait and see about your discussion.
We had the discussion, and I think it's a good plan that's been set forth, and I will stay on top of that. And I think all of us that met was in agreement that this issue can definitely be resolved in a way that is definitely going to be very beneficial for any person that wants to walk through the library doors and have benefits.
And the comments about libraries and services at the community centers will be included in the community center.
Absolutely, and
I
they
don't wanna
definitely.
leave anything on the table that you want on it.
Okay.
Has that got it?
Yeah, it's got it.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
All right,
And
so
if I
we're-
wanted to, not fund it, that wasn't
Okay,
the point. We
okay.
can go back and forth on that, but I feel the same way about the mayor's staff, how top heavy and everybody six figures when some of them don't even need to be making that. So that same passion, when it come to other areas, I hope you bring it to.
No, hey, I'm gonna bring when I need to bring.
Councilman Ledford.
Madam Chair, I appreciate the passion in the conversation for the library, and I wanted to say that in the search for the new director, during those conversations and interviews, expanding into our neighborhoods where the need is most has been a very, very top priority in conversation. So I just wanted to make sure that this council knows that that has been a very, very important part of what we've been discussing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes,
And the last thing I'm gonna say.
Oh, you can say as much as you want, Councilwoman.
No, the position for the individual that raises funds for the library to sponsor whatever events, because, to me, that person is getting paid a good amount of money, but the scales of justice is nowhere near balanced when it comes to giving the service that's needed. When it comes to Black History Month, zero, but the Holocaust, major. So that individual, if they are to have that position and be paid, need to put that same energy.
Balance.
Yes, and when it comes to Black history.
Okay, anything else on the library? The administrative hearing officer, I believe, go ahead, I think you want.
You skipping down a couple? We got the list up.
I'm getting, I know that.
Okay.
And I appreciate you doing that.
Okay, sure.
However, there are a few that I know
You wanna hit?
we can hit and move on with.
Sure.
Some will take more discussion.
All right. So for the administrative hearing officer, having heard council feedback here, what we would like to do is increase the AHO funding for STVR and litter and other enforcement from $15,000 up to $40,000. We expect it to largely fund itself based on fines that it will levy and collect. Again, this is essentially equivalent to a retainer, right? So it doesn't mean we have to spend the $40,000. We just didn't want to cut its legs out from under it with the $15,000 and limit its ability. So by raising it up to $40,000, it gives it more room to run potentially, and at the same time, we will closely monitor any impacts on the city court side in terms of administrative workload, and just keep a really close eye on things on that side to see, you know, what kind of impacts it has on the city court side. So, that's where we're landing there.
Okay, and I think that addresses the concerns that we had written down. Is there anything else there?
May I add in one
Yes.
thing? Have we considered, Ryan, and I think the AHO is gonna be very instrumental for us, it's gonna be a very powerful tool for enforcement. Have we thought about, actually having a second AHO, and I mean by that is backup in case the original AHO is out sick, or, because I do anticipate in a lot of new work being done and created in benefit of the city, but have we looked at maybe opening that process up for a backup when those situations arise? I'm one of those redundant systems guys, so if I have one digital press, I have two. If I have one large format printer, I have three. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean,
I think I like your thought process as an operations guy.
Yeah.
Trust me, but I think this is a walk, crawl, run scenario. So I think we can get there if we need to, for sure.
I just don't want us to get caught off guard.
So,
Agree.
so the funds are for an AHO, and it's an as-needed contract. So he's right, it's illusory in that it's only as we need it. Is it tied to one person or to the office?
That's a great question.
Because I think we have the room to do the breathing.
I think if we needed to take the 40,000 and split it across two, we could.
It's not a position.
So I think we could.
A hired.
I think we could be flexible with it if we start running into challenges.
Okay.
So.
Trying to think ahead.
Yeah, that's good. Oh, Councilman.
Will we use the city court clerks to help the AHOs? I mean, all the paperwork that's gonna come with this? Where
Yeah,
does
we actually were talking with
where does
Dallas.
that live?
Yeah, we were talking about that with Dallas this week because we also there's certainly a checks and balances there. You need there to be some separation, frankly, because if the folks doing the enforcement cannot also be the folks doing the clerical work for the administrative hearing officer, that you need some separation. So I think likely that will be the case, but we need to dot the i's and cross the t's in terms of the administrative support and where that will actually live over the next couple weeks.
Wait a minute, I gotta follow up on that. The AHO is out of what office, or is it freestanding?
I think right now it's being funded through Public Works, right, and LDO.
Because, why?
That's where all the STVR activity and enforcement.
What about
is
noise,
being-
what about garbage, what about
So
litter?
we've moved all of that with the code enforcement movement is now with Donna Castile and that whole team is now
And-
moving under LDO.
And LDO is under Public Works?
That's right. Yes. It has been for.
Okay, so I guess my deep dive here is, I'm not sure what you just said about clerks in the court helping with enforcement since,
They're not helping with enforcement.
no,
His
I mean,
question.
doing the paperwork.
Yeah, his question is just
Why
for
is
the
that not-
AHO. Who is helping the AHO
Yeah,
with the AHO's administrative work? And so we have to figure that out.
so what I would like for you to take a look at is, enforcement happens two ways in the city. It happens through what is now the city court, and it also happens, if you will, through an AHO. But it's still enforcement. And I'm wondering if you might want to be thinking about, for all kinds of reasons, using the staff. The AHO can't be a part of a constitutional office, the state, okay? I don't know why, because the staff from that falls under Department of Finance. So why can't that staff under Department of Finance aid in either.
That's
It's
what,
just something to
that's
think
what we're,
about.
I think we're all saying the same thing.
Okay,
Yes.
so,
Yeah.
But will they get more money for doing an additional job? Now, that, we wanna make sure they getting paid for the bang of what they producing.
For sure, and we'll figure that out. I think what some of, yes, we need to sift through all of these pieces. And some of the question that council asked last week was, with this AHO work, will some of the work perhaps leave city court and go this way? So it might be a net even in terms of the amount of work, frankly. And so we have to watch it. We have to keep a close eye on it, so.
so this is gonna be a close eye, let's take a look at it. Do y'all need any more discussion about this now, or can we, I've made a note of what we're interested in, can we move on?
Yeah.
Any other questions there? Okay. The zoo and the ball fields, I believe that was you, Councilman Henderson?
It was, I think the zoo, I believe we've resolved that, Vicki.
Yeah.
We've had an offline conversation, and I think we're gonna find the money that would basically show appreciation to them and return the same amount of money as it did last year. I think the cost, the difference, the deduction was in the cost savings for the fleet management. Not really taking anything away, but I think just to show support and appreciation, I think returning the same amount of budget that we did the year before would, it, to me, just has a better look. And I think you said we could find
We
that
can do
amount of
that.
money.
There was no intention to reduce their budget.
Yeah,
That was an
So-
oversight on our part.
so we're,
Are you good?
I'm good with the zoo.
All right, I thought we'd talk about the ball fields and then
I'm sorry.
break for lunch and do the agencies and the,
Yeah, and I think
it'll be a larger discussion.
Yeah, the ball fields are a larger discussion I'm having offline as well.
All right, so, all right, let me ask you this, Councilman. Do you see the ball fields as a larger discussion here or
Probably not.
looking at? I'm talking time. You can have as much, do you want to break for
I
lunch
don't-
and put ball fields after?
I don't
lunch?
need to discuss ball fields at this table.
All right, good.
If anybody else does, that's
Well, it
the
depends on
difference.
what he wants to talk about with ball fields. I got some ball
That's
fields.
my business.
I got some ball fields that flood.
So what, all right,
I do not need to talk about ball fields.
There
at
we
this
go.
table.
all right.
Now, if anybody else does, let's,
And does anyone else need to, or do you prefer to lobby offline?
I'm gonna lobby offline.
He knows he can get more done.
All right. Never say we're not totally transparent and
We
whatever.
just do our job.
Yeah, hey.
It will not involve another council person at this point in time.
All right. The only thing I have left for this table discussion is the agencies and reports and impact and all of that sort of thing. Are you content to save that for after lunch?
Yes.
We have the Eastgate, we want to mention something about Eastgate real quick.
Do you want to do that now, or is that that's a larger discussion, or do you want to,
I think it can be relatively quick,
all right, let's do Eastgate.
perhaps, so.
We've got some hungry council.
And then we'll go to lunch, maybe.
Okay.
Okay, so, I know Councilwoman Coonrod, added this over email. I appreciate her adding this important topic, to the list. I know there's been, some meetings and discussion about this over the last couple weeks. So, from our side, just wanna make a couple statements that, clearly seniors are important, constituency within our community. We've definitely heard feedback that, a few pieces of feedback. One is that the current senior center is not sufficient for our seniors' needs. We've also heard the feedback that The seniors that do participate in the programming there enjoy the programming there at the senior center, and that the seniors that have participated in programming at our community centers have enjoyed the programming at those community centers. And so, at this point in time, we are continuing to explore all options to ensure that senior programming is a priority that is available for the senior community for years to come here in Chattanooga. So that's just where we want to leave it for now, but wanted to address that topic as you put it on.
So
on
you're
the list
leaving the
today.
budget as is?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, of course, it's up to council. It's not up to Ryan if we leave it.
I understand that, Councilwoman. I'm saying from his point of view, you're not making any changes to the budget.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so in about 5 years, I'll be considered a senior according to AARP.
No.
So
I
I'm
don't
not
believe
trying
that.
to go to
I don't
Eastgate.
believe that.
I'm trying to go to Eastdale Community Center. We should be able to, but what I'm looking at is we paying which is done increased since so almost $90,000 that we're giving. Now this is where this come in at, is are we getting what we paying for our money's worth? Yes, they have great programming out there, but those same programs can be used in other areas. The amount of money in the next 4 years, what we've spent already, is enough to what we could have built them a building. We could have rehabbed one of the 18 centers, one of them that's underutilized, and created them their own area. So now this is why I become fiscal conservative about this spending. So yeah, you could say I'm a Democrat or Republican, whatever you want to put me in, but we got to think smarter about the way we spending our money. And that's one that's not a smart move. Not just that, like, I get it, the library and all of that, but we spending way too much, and it increases but I hear you. But I don't know if I'm gonna sit on the sideline like Councilwoman Noel is. I'm gonna continue to be a thorn about it, because every year y'all tell us the same old lie. We're gonna do something about it. Not you freshly here. So I'm trusting that what you're saying that's what's gonna happen. Because since 17, we had the same discussion about Eastgate, and we're told we're looking at other options. Or we looking at this, we're doing that. 18 budget come around, oh, well, we just hadn't got it right. We haven't found any space. 19, 20, oh, well, it's COVID. We really don't. It's been the same thing. I'm tired of hearing that nonsense. I'm from Eastdale. I'd rather you just tell me the truth. We not finna look at another space. We not gonna rehab another center for these seniors. We're gonna keep them here at this small location, because every year there's additional seniors being added to the pot that wanna go to this location. So I can respect that versus me being lied to every year. And I think that's part of my frustration. I just come off the cuff, tell me what it is, but the lies I can't keep participating in. And quit lying to our seniors. If that's the best that you're gonna give them, then tell them that's the best that we're gonna give them. Because they deserve somewhat to make them feel good too. Just like we advocate for our youth and these jail-driven centers that we have, we gotta have that same passion for our seniors, because everybody at the table, you're already a senior, and we got ones that's approaching to become seniors, according to the AARP. Regardless if we don't wanna be put in that category, AARP say at 50, we're seniors. So that's all I got. I know you sound like it was stressful for you to talk about it, but I just want you to know I'm gonna continue to be a thorn about it until somebody say, Coonrod, you know what, we're not gonna do it. And then I'm gonna back off and accept that answer. But I don't wanna continue to accept lies.
Councilman Ledford.
Just a technical question. The lease for Eastgate is signed with, I think, an entity in Delaware, Massachusetts, someplace out of state, if I'm correct. The term on that contract, I don't recall the details, but it's pretty far out, I think 4, 5, 6 years maybe. Has the administration taken a look to some of the points that Councilwoman Coonrod has brought up by weighing that weighing that out with not paying rent to, keeping that money more local. Has that conversation started to evolve or come around through this process, by chance?
The lease is being evaluated.
It is?
Hmm.
Wow, okay, well, that's good news. I appreciate that, thanks. I'm interested in following up.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Well, I mean, seriously, what does that mean? We're evaluating. What, from what standpoint?
It's being looked at very closely.
I get it. I know where you're at. Okay.
Okay. Is there anything else before we break for lunch?
Well, I think that the Eastgate Senior Center is part of a bigger conversation about the effectiveness of our community centers overall. And, in today's conversation, we've shown a light on the library where we think we have a big opportunity to expand the offerings to the entire city, to parts of our city that have had no library access. And with community centers, I think we have about, I think, $14 million in our budget this year for community centers, and I've expressed to you, Ryan, and to the team how much more I expect out of those dollars, and I feel like the senior center is part of a bigger conversation, and it feels to me like that department as a whole is, it's still trying to figure out what its real job is in service to the people of Chattanooga. And as I see how the Eastgate Senior Center fits in it, it's like none of those centers are functioning especially well. Maybe 10% of them are functioning well. And then the ones that are don't necessarily have the facilities that they need. And I'm hopeful that in the next 2 years that we see dramatic improvement in the community center product, period,
I think
for anybody of any age.
Yeah, I think if I could just take a minute, I know everyone's stomachs are getting hungry, and so I'll try to keep it relatively short. But, we set a goal back in January for each of our centers to have 3 programs a day, and we've been excited about the progress that our centers have been rallying around to really focus on 3 programs a day in each center, focused on serving the community. And those are going to look different in each center. And those can include senior programming. I think there's great opportunity there for seniors programming within each of the centers. Those can include things that are about health and wellness. They can include recreational activities. They can also include financial literacy. They can also include, lots of different really interesting things. And to your point, some of that is still getting started because it is thinking differently. In the community advisory committees, that some of them are still getting off the ground, but we are already starting to see them paying dividends in terms of helping inform what can those things be. And so I think we're actually at an exciting time where each of these centers are pivoting and are turning in this direction. Some of them are blowing it out of the water, and some of them are still turning in this direction. And so we're trying to support them as best we can. But there is an adjustment happening, and it's not an easy one, up and down and side to side,
Yeah,
So
I understand.
we're doing our best up and down.
So I think the takeaway here is that if we're gonna have true community centers, then all of the centers should offer, whether it's library services or senior, and I think we can ill afford people that don't play well with others. I think what we need to do is have staffs that work collaboratively with each other. And everybody be on the same page. The turf guarding needs to stop.
Yeah.
And because they're hired to do a job, and if they're not doing it, then they shouldn't be there. The bottom line is that equity is very important, and I've heard my colleagues talking about that a lot. And this shouldn't be too hard to implement, particularly with the kind of money we have. And whether it's library services, senior services, health services, whatever it is, they ought to start. I mean, what I'm hearing is a lot of meetings and a lot of frustration, and people want the services. And I think the centers and their constituencies need to decide what services are good or what they need in their community. We shouldn't be preaching upon them and
No.
telling them
Right.
what they need.
That's right.
And it all is very matrixed. I know I sent you an email about peeling paint and stuff like that. And this was out of frustration from an advisory group who every time they asked for it was told from the center people, you're not the people in the center, but the people that are at
Leadership.
Eastgate, that's not in our department. You know, so that needs to be looked at.
Yeah.
So it's not, did Bill Payne get a request for it? It's that if the walls are peeling, they need to be painted and not be told it's not in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
So I think what's happening across the board is we need to matrix, and people need to play well together as a team.
Yep. Agree.
Okay?
Agree.
All right. Yeah,
Real quick, thank you,
Yeah.
Ryan. And I'd like to add, I know this, we may not wanna talk about it, but we need to look at increasing the salary of our recreation center workers. One, they're the first point of contact once them kids come home, and we're asking them to be the social worker, the therapeutic art person for the kid, the public safety advisor, the gang intervention. We asking them to be the parents to the kids that the parents are absent. We asking them to we're asking them to do a lot.
They play a critical role, you're right, and I'm hopeful that the step plan, for those of them that have been here for a while, hopefully they will see a decent bump from this step plan with this budget. So if, we can get the budget passed, they should see some improvement from this, so.
But also they have to really do a great job.
They do, that's true, in order to progress further, you're right, yeah.
Well, let's just evaluate everybody, their position and their salaries then. Cause they do a hell of a lot compared to a lot of people if we don't go down that rabbit trail.
They do a lot, yeah.
she's right. They're the boots on the ground, and the quote thinkers in the offices maybe need to think a little better. Okay, so it is now 10:12. Let's get back together about 1:45. Is that good?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
I realized my laptop was gonna die. I forgot my
I know,
power
one.
cord.
One would help.
So Teresa went up and grabbed it for me.
You made it, you made it.